My first interaction with a sequential gearbox was quite surprising. During the race I needed to shift to reverse gear from second, and I did it on my gearbox, but in the game the car remained in the first gear. Why did it happen? Well, the car had a sequential gearbox, which is what we will talk about today. People call it a perfect middle ground between a manual and an automatic transmission. With a mechanism similar to a manual transmission, where you can shift gears yourself, a sequential transmission doesn't require a clutch pedal. It is also more efficient than a manual transmission and safer for the engine. So, let's take a look at its structure and then compare a car with a manual transmission to a car with a sequential transmission. To begin with, let's recall the structure and basic principle of a manual transmission. It all depends on gears of different sizes, which are placed on two shafts. The first shaft comes from the engine, and the second is connected to it through gears of different sizes. And the second shaft transmits torque to the differential and then to the wheels. The trick here is that all gears that are connected to each other are of different sizes. And to spin the first gear, the shaft from the engine will need to make 3.8 revolutions. That is, the engine shaft makes more revolutions than the shaft that transmits torque to the wheels. Only starting from the fourth gear, these values equalize. And in the fifth, and accordingly more, the engine shaft will make fewer revolutions than the shaft to the wheels. And by the way, because of this, fuel economy will occur. Also, a manual transmission needs a clutch, because when shifting the gears, there may be a jerk at insufficient engine revs, and the engine will stop. Therefore, the shaft that comes from the engine is connected to it with a special plates with high friction. And when we press the clutch pedal, these plates are disconnected from each other and we can shift gears. And then gradually release the clutch pedal, which means that the disc will be connected again. So, why doesn't a sequential gearbox need a clutch? In this gearbox, the process of disconnecting and connecting the two discs is done automatically by hydraulic shafts. This is why it's called semi-automatic. Now let's look at the structure of the sequential gearbox. I found on the internet how people made a 3D printed model of it, as well as several GIFs that describe its principle of operation very well. It is based on the same gears of different sizes, but the switching between them is done in a different way. When we switch the lever forward or backward, it turns a shaft with a differently shaped cutouts, and these cutouts push out the metal plates, which then push the corresponding gears into the connection. This is what you see in the picture. Here is this shaft with cutouts, and here is how it shifts gears. And at this stage it becomes clear why all the shifts on this gearbox are gradual. We can jump from one cutout shape to the next, so it means that we can skip a gear. So now, when we understand the structure, we can draw out specific pros and cons of sequential gearbox, starting with its pluses. Sequential gearbox allow very quick gear changes. This is very important for sports cars and racing cars, where every second counts. Also, sequential gearbox is easier to operate because the gears are shifted in sequence one after the other, and this removes the possibility of accidentally engaging the wrong gear. Also, of course, it increases concentration on the road, because gear shifting is quick and without complicated operations. Also, sequential transmissions can be more efficient in terms of transferring engine power to the wheels, which improves overall car performance. And talking about its minuses, it's of course price, because sequential transmissions are usually more expensive to manufacture and install in the car, And also sequential transmission may require more frequent maintenance and replacement of parts because of heavy use, especially in racing conditions. And also no reverse. Well, sometimes some sequential gearboxes don't have reverse gear or have a separate process to activate it, which can be inconvenient in some situations. In other words, sequential transmission is a kind of a manual transmission, but designed for racing. For the driver to be able to control the number of revolutions during the gear changes, but also so that he is not distracted by such things as the position of the lever and the pressure on the clutch pedal. Now we will do a test and compare the manual and sequential transmissions. We will measure the acceleration to 100 km/h as well as the speed of the car before the final meeting with the pole. And the first car with a manual gearbox accelerated to 100 km/h in 4.6 seconds. From the sequential gearbox I expect faster acceleration but a lower top speed. Let's see what the results of the sequential transmission will be. As I expected, the acceleration to 100 km/h is faster and it is 4.4 seconds, and the maximum speed is 277 km/h. As we can see, the sequential gearbox is really more efficient and makes a difference in acceleration. Well, that's all. Thank you very much for your attention. Please support me with a like so that this video and my channel can develop further. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.